All right, so in this particular video, of course, we're going to actually expound on the neuron conversation that was started in terms of a painting that's hanging up. Okay, welcome back. Obviously, if you're new to the channel, of course, I deal with esoteric and exoteric research in retrospect to how it influences you, and by being on a more pious lifestyle, wanting to encourage that for that to help you in your soul journey on obtaining the higher regions and so forth. So in this particular video, like I was saying earlier in the introduction, of course, we're going to expound on the particular video that was dealing with this particular painting, of course, that's hanging up, and we're really deciphering it and just going in more detail. So what happens, of course, is I've been looking at a couple of people's videos, obviously, and hearing the messages that have been promulgated in the communities, but I haven't actually seen anything that we can actually say is really going to bring us to victory as a people. Obviously, we see that there's something that's going on. Obviously, what ends up happening, of course, in certain groups is you'll end up changing the names of certain characters, but keeping the same structure that was learned in the dogmas or the set creeds with new information in terms of knowledge. And then, of course, you advance from that, and then you start getting into land, maybe you start getting into identity and so forth. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with any of that information, because it's helpful in terms of disassociating you with ideas that fall. As I brought out in the personality matrix, obviously it deals with a lot of that information in the lower worlds in terms of what you need to unroot yourself from. So the identity conversation is important, disassociating yourself with the Namdagur terms, of course, and then obviously when you're dealing with land and so forth, and just understanding that concept. But then what we really have to also think about is when we deal with something that's coming from a more advanced way, of course, then what it does is we see that in the information that's being taught is it's actually trying to guide us to something. Okay, it's trying to guide us to something. And what that typically is, when we start talking about source, we're really talking about that cell, that particular original cell that someone might have come from. And obviously when you are in the teachings in the Bible and so forth, and then you realize, okay, well, a lot of this stuff comes from like earlier civilizations like Thule, which is another name for Atlantis, and then you start dealing with these particular ones who came from another place and decided to seed a particular location, and then obviously you fast forward, and then one of them actually gave that particular group his blood, so to speak, which kind of made them a royal lineage. And that's really what this whole conversation has been about, honestly, is who is trying to control particular locations and regions and so forth. And that's where you get the conversation that's spoken about in the book of Revelations, not Revelations, but in the book of Psalms. In the book of Psalms, where it deals with these particular ones, where it says, let us cut them off from being a nation, that their name will be no more in remembrance there. And that's a very interesting conversation there, and it goes on to name some names in there. But one of the ones that really stuck out to me, of course, is when you start dealing with the children of Lot. And one of the things that the Bible pointed out that made it a really identifier is, don't forget what those particular daughters did when they waited until their so-called father was sleeping, and then they started engaging into certain activities, of course, in order to get a particular lineage from him. So that same characteristics traits is happening with people today, because what they're trying to do, of course, that I was bringing out in this particular video, because they're trying to keep something from rising, is they're actually using those same types of strategies if you've decided that you don't want to engage into the animalistic thing of sending the seed out, but trying to send it up. Okay, trying to send it up. So then you'll notice that that characteristics traits in those children of Lot actually comes into play because of the things that they typically do whenever you're sleeping, trying to work to try to prevent that particular seed from rising. And this illustration showing that how you have this swan-looking bird with the foot on the fish, and if you're familiar with the ancient esoteric meaning for Christ, it's really an oil. It's an oil that has a fishy substance. That's the reason why you see in the dogmas they typically like to associate a fish when it's dealing with Christ. It has nothing to do with the feeding people with the fish, so to speak, which is also another way to that's actually a lot of esoteric meaning behind that too. But really, that's what this illustration that's hanging up on the wall of these ones that said, "Let us cut them off from being a nation, that their name would be no more in remembrance there." So then on their walls, of course, they hang up paintings such as like unto this, where it really kind of shows what their plans are and how they're trying to prevent something from rising, okay? Because you're dealing with this particular dragon that we're going to actually go over in this video. So whenever I originally brought this out, I was basically showing you that the dragon that's spoken about in the Revelations that gives you the power to speak with great authority, and it also gives you the power to heal. Because we have in the left-hand corner here, we see that there's someone here that has a wound in their head. You see that on the right side of their head. They have a wound there, and that's what's spoken about in the book of Revelations, where it says you need to get that power from the dragon. But then as you can see that they're using certain organizations and teams to keep the foot on the tail of the dragon. And obviously it was written in the book of Deuteronomy that if a specific group didn't do a specific thing, then they would become the tail and not the head, okay? So now you know one of the things that you're aiming to do is to not be in the tail. So when we talk about the tail, this is an illustration here of a neuron. So if you look to the right here where it says these terminals and all that kind of stuff, you can look at that as being the tail. So when you're in the tail, obviously, of course, you're caught up into a bunch of senses, and it looks like where you're located when you're operating at that level, obviously, it looks like you're down here in the root chakra, which is a representation of the tail. So down here in the personality matrix, of course, the root chakra is red. And remember, it says that there's this particular woman that rideth upon a scarlet red beast, right? So that scarlet red beast is an example of the red chakra here. I'm just using this term. I'm not saying that these are terms that I use every day, but I'm just using it based on this illustration here. So if we look at number one, of course, we can look at that as being the tail, of course, and then it looks like when you're down there, you're caught up into the subconscious type of thing in terms of the mind, automatic processes like religions and various different dogmas and family associations and so forth. You're caught up into, it looks like physical body type stuff. And then you're dealing with a hard drive where it looks like a particular group has figured out how to continually put something on a CD for you. So if you start to realize that it looks like you kind of keep going through the same type of stuff over and over again, then that's a CD, and that's an example of this hard drive situation dealing with cellular memories, okay? Dealing with cellular memories, all right? So I did do a video where I was kind of talking about mRNA and getting certain messages out that are there, of course, so you can start that coding process properly and everything, so you can start scratching that CD and possibly removing it. So that's what we're dealing with here when we look at this particular neuron, of course, and then when we look down there at the tail, that's giving you an example, obviously, of what we're dealing with when we deal with this particular team, of course, that has the foot on the tail trying to prevent it from rising. So let's look at this a little bit more. So remember what I was able to do earlier is point out the fact that we have something here that looks like it has its foot on the actual fish. And remember, we are identifying this fish as being that oily substance that has to go up the spinal column, And then I'm pointing that out. Here's another illustration here, of course, okay? So what we have here are 4 different types of neurons, okay? The one that we want to focus on is the one that's multipolar, okay? The one that's multipolar is the one I kind of want to focus on in this particular video, because that's the illustration that I brought out here, of course, what we're dealing with. And notice how it's kind of like a dragon. It's kind of like a dragon, right? If you kind of look at the way it looks, it kind of has the representation kind of like of a dragon, right? So then when we look at this particular illustration, of course, and we're trying to decipher it, we can see here that we have something that is keeping the foot on the tail, which means that it's trying to keep you in the tail, caught up in a bunch of senses, okay? So let's look at this a little bit more, because when we look at another illustration, of course, let's look at this particular illustration here. We can get a little bit more information on what we're dealing with. So here, of course, notice how it says you have these swan sails, okay? You have the swan sails. Let me pull up another illustration just in case that might not work for you. So here, of course, the first 4 things here is the same kind of illustration that I showed you earlier, where we have these 4 different types of neurons. Okay, we have these 4 different types of neurons, right? So then, okay, going back to this illustration here, of course, I'm just going to move it up a little bit here so you can kind of see what we're dealing with. So then here, of course, notice how you have these swan sails that looks like it's wrapped around the particular axon. Okay, we have the axon. And then you're wondering why I'm probably saying something about an axon. And don't forget, of course, that an oxon, pronounced oxon, so it's not by accident that in the so-called authoritative Hebrew language, they have the word ak in there, where you're kind of referencing to your brother there, okay? So here, of course, we have these axons that, and the dendrites now, allow neurons to do what? To communicate even across long distances, So that's what we have there. Let me see if I can get something else brought out here. And don't forget here in this illustration in the book of Numbers, how you have these particular ones that were considered giants, and they were the sons of Anak there. Don't forget about that. And then don't forget here that the term dendra is actually mentioned several times in the book, and it's dealing with tree. So if you notice here, when we have this illustration, how it looks like a tree. You see that? And then you have the dendrites up there, and then you have the axon, and then you have those swan sails that are wrapped around the axon there. You see that? So notice how it looks like a tree, and it says, "No good tree can bring forth corrupt fruit, and no corrupt tree can bring forth good fruit. By the fruit you shall know the tree." Right? So that's what we're really dealing with here. So then when we go back to this illustration, of course, where we have this particular swan that has its foot on the fish, trying to prevent it from going where? Maybe possibly up the axon to reach the area that it needs to reach to, of course, in order to do something like maybe a regeneration process. So let me pull something out here that might help. And you can always slow this down if you need to, and rewind it, of course, so you can get back to it. But here I have something that's pulled up here when I said, okay, what actually targets the swan sail? And then I came across something here. Let me see if I can get that the appropriate illustration up here for you really quick here. So then I came across this here. It says the Diong, something called a Diong, right? It says it promotes neuron regeneration. So Diong. And then remember earlier how I mentioned something about the dragon gives the power to you. In Revelation chapter 13, it says the dragon gave him its power. And then he had a wound. It said he had a wound. Remember the wound here that you see in the on the right side of his head there? It says he had a wound, but the deadly wound was healed because the dragon gave him its power, which also gave him the power to heal. Do you see that? So then when I said, okay, what actually targets the swan then? What targets the swan sail And then that's when I came across the word Diong. The word Diong is what does it. Let me see here. So where's that illustration? Just give me a second so I can get the illustration back up here for you. All right. So here we go. All right. So it says the Diong promotes neuron regeneration. You're probably asking, okay, what does that got to do with the dragon? So then what I did, of course, is I said, what is a Diong? First I looked up what a Diong was, and then it said it was a dragon. Look, it says a Diong is a dragon, and it controls what? The waterways. Do you get what I'm saying? It controls the waterways, and the spiritual dragon who controls the rain and the winds. Okay, all throughout the scriptures, obviously it's dealing with like rain, winds, thunder, storms, and things of that nature. So it looks like the Diong, this is what we can say that this particular illustration is. This is a Diong. All right, and notice how, okay, let's see if we can, so basically here we have an illustration of a Diong right here, which is basically a dragon, which is interesting, but then this actually kind of looks like a dragon also. So, and then when we look up the Diong, what it does here, notice how it says the Diong promotes neuron regeneration. So that looks like having something healed. And then we have something called, if you look here, it says earthworm extract is what Diong is. So I had another illustration here that said that. But yeah, this is pretty much what it is. It's an earthworm extract. So then when we go over here, of course, and we look at this particular illustration where it has, notice how let me get this, see if I can get this arrow over here. Let me see if I can turn this arrow around so you can see it. But I'm going to point out something to you that I didn't point out in an earlier video, but I want you to look closely right here. Notice how you see like a small baby dragon right there. Are y'all able to see that? So what they're telling you is that they are used there. So while you are wounded in the head, they are trying to take the earthworm extract, which is a Diong. So when it's considered an earthworm, it's at the more of a baby stage, an undeveloped stage here. So this is probably one of the reasons why they have certain abominable stuff set up, encouraging interactions with the flesh and all that kind of stuff, so they can actually get this particular substance, because what it does is it looks like it does a healing process. It looks like it does a healing process. It causes the neurons to regenerate, and what they're probably looking for is, what do they call it? The fountain of youth, right? They call it the fountain of youth. So it looks like what we might have happen, of course, is we have these intruders that might have gotten access to the swan cells through their studies and so forth, and have set up various different organizations to put the foot on the tail and then get you caught up in a bunch of pleasures, so this particular Christ doesn't actually rise up. So then the swan cell is blocking it from going up the axon, which is something that's in the vertebrae. Isn't that interesting? So this is what you have going on in this particular illustration. And you're probably wondering why I started the video out with this, but this is an example of senses right here. You know, when you have all these various different types of snakes and so forth, and I think all of this is just illustrations of the woman. Notice here, she has an issue, something's going on with the tongue there, but it looks like we're dealing with a prevention of this particular seed from developing, which is that woman that, remember it says something else was waiting, because obviously you probably have a dual principle, especially with the way that these translators has written something, but it talks about this woman who is waiting to be delivered. Okay, and I'm bringing that up because we have this illustration here, of course, where we're dealing with something that looks very similar. Actually there's no similar to it, but what we're dealing with here is the very same exact thing here. So then when you have something that's able to go up the axon, we can look at that as the vertebrae going up all the way up here and it's able to get inside of this area up here, then that looks like where you have this development of where in certain teachings they deal with it as being called the eye of Horus there. Okay, and the reason why I'm bringing that up, obviously, is because there's certain like if you look up like what Dendra is actually a temple. Like for example, here it says there was a temple that was built dedicated to the goddess Hathor and her son Horus, right? So you're dealing with Hathor, which is probably a representation of this particular Diong dragon, and then you have Horus, which is a representation of, you already know, and then it says the temple is well known for other stuff there, but then it says, the birth of Horus, right? The birth of Horus. So this birth process looks like it has something to do with this oil that has to go up the spinal column and then go up to this particular region here, what people might identify as being this particular eye type of thing. Okay, this particular eye type of thing. So see here how you have that arm. Let me see if I can get an arrow here. So let me get this arrow turned around. See here, okay, I'm pointing here. So this, of course, look at that arm there. So it says by the arm, by the strength of the arm. Oh, mighty arm, right? So this looks like the cure and what we actually need to do to accomplish what needs to be done, because it looks like these particular lands. Oh, I had this illustration here. I wanted to show you this here, talking about these swans, because you're probably like, how did you come up with a swan for this particular illustration here with the foot on the fish? Because remember, I was showing you about the swan sail there, right? So this is an example of something that's trying to block something from rising up the spinal column, dealing with those the axons and that pathway there. And the reason why this is important is because what we have happen here, like for example, if you look at in Ephesians chapter 2, it talks about this prince of the air. Okay, it talks about something that is like the prince of the air, and it says the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Okay, all right. So, what does it do? It says it tries to push you into lust types of activity. So that looks like what this particular team here that has the foot on the tail, it looks like that is part of their particular organization, is to create and monetize business models in order for them to encourage and to prevent this birth process from happening, and to encourage the lust types of things. So when we talk about prince of the air, don't forget that the axons allow neurons to communicate even across where? Long distances. So when Ephesians is trying to give you information about this particular prince of the air type thing, it looks like that's what it's talking about, is these particular ones who have these intruders are spoken about in the Kabbalah, where it says out of the heart and out of the mind shall the intruder be cast out once and for all, right? So it looks like these intruders have gotten access to the dendrite areas that's dealing with the senses. That's the reason why I had this illustration pulled up here. So if you look at this illustration, how you see how you have these particular snakes and stuff, this is just a representation of senses. Okay, this is just another representation of senses. And notice how you have the ear on the particular horse here that's more above all the other horses. That's basically showing you that that is the main sense that they actually use to get to you. That's one of the main ones. It's that hearing one. So once you move past, say, like the eating thing and all that other kind of stuff or whatever, like whether it be addictions or whatever and all that kind of stuff, then that's when it looks like this particular sense that's dealing with the ears is the primary focus, because it looks like everywhere throughout the scriptures where it was saying these were supposed to be tools for a specific people, it looked like another group started studying all of that stuff so they can, through their institutions and deceptive systems and so forth, keep you in a state of cyclicity by controlling you through those senses. So it looks like what they've done, of course, is try to, through manipulation, is to enjoy the higher regions of the lower self. The higher regions of the lower self. So like, for example, if you look at these lower regions, you have the root chakra, which is red, orange, yellow, and then you have it looks like you have the heart here, which is green, and the throat is blue, and so forth. So it looks like, you know, all of those areas there, looks like there's been some manipulation that has been done in those areas through manipulation and so forth. So what I'm wanting to do here is just show you something. So I showed you this area here, right? Okay, and then notice how the tongue looks like there's something happening with the tongue there. Okay, so let's look at this like this as being the mother. Let's look at this as being this one who and then we have this tongue here. We have a tongue here. This basically is a tongue. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have an ancient map here that was drawn up in the ancient 1100s. This is Idrisi. So what you know as actually south is actually north, because this, according to the Gregorian or any of those types of Makorian or whatever you want to call them, those maps, this one would be considered upside down. But look at the illustration there, and then look at this illustration. Hold on a second. All right. So look at that illustration. Let me see if I can get an arrow here to help you out. And this is very interesting. So look at this. Look at this one here. And then look at this map here. If you study this, I'm gonna put these as downloads for you. You know, so y'all can have access to this, okay? But if you parallel this, you'll see that you'll find the same exact structure, you know, in terms of this inner bird here, and the way that it's shaped and the way that it looks, compared to this particular map here. So then when you look at this map closely, and obviously I'm going to provide this to you, you'll see a lot of stuff that looks like stuff that's taking place from within you. So I'm saying that to say this. There's a reason why in certain places they call certain, when you enter into those areas, they call it terminals. There's a reason, because that seems to be showing you that you're entering into the root of a certain land or into a certain region and so forth. So it looks like what we have happen when we start thinking about Psalms 83, and it says, let us cut them off from being a nation, that their name will be no more in remembrance and so forth. It looks like what is going on here is what has been, like, for example, when we look at this map here, you're going to see it in your download there. You'll notice that you see a lot of stuff that looks like it's like various different things that is taking place from within the body, right? And I'm showing you the illustration here to show you that it looks the exact same way. Okay, so what I'm saying is through this path of evolution, this path of getting to the places that you're supposed to get to, it looks like that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be advancing from one level to the next level so you can gain positions in the places that you are located in. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? So if you look at this like this is, if you look at this as being, say, this part here, or you can say it being one of these here, something along these lines, and don't forget that what you know as this particular land is actually, this is not the south, this is actually the north. So this means that this is really the head. That means that that's really the head. So there are those that are operating in the lower self that are claiming to be the head, but they're not. They are the synagogue of Satan. And don't forget that the synagogue of Satan basically just means you're a synagogue of the what? Of the lower self, meaning you promote pleasures of the flesh, you promote addictions, you promote ignorance through memories, cellular memories that have nothing to do with where you came from and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically what it's talking about when it says the synagogue of Satan. It's talking about the synagogue of the lower self. Okay, so there are those that are claiming to be high that are actually extremely low. By the fruit you shall know them. Okay? By the fruit you shall know them, right? And there's a reason why on this particular illustration, if you look in the middle here, there's a reason why they're passing out fruit there. So if you look, you can see something that looks like a sail here. Look at this circle. I'm going to see if I can put this arrow up here. So look how there's a circle going all the way around here. And notice in the top left-hand corner, the top right-hand corner, there's fire. Okay, there's fire. So I'm showing you this because I'm trying to show you that this is a representation of the lower self, that they're trying to keep everyone else like in the lower regions of the lower self. So what they're doing is they're enjoying the lower regions of the lowest self, and that has become a heaven to them. So if you look at these colors, you see red, orange, yellow, green, and so on, right? So then let's go back to the illustration here. Let's go back to the illustration here. Let's put an arrow on this guy. Okay, let me see here. Just give me a second. Let me put an arrow on this guy here. Look at the colors on his shirt. Okay. All right, look at the colors on this guy's shirt here. Okay, look at the colors on his shirt. Now I'm going to move the arrow to this lady over here. Look at the colors on that dress that they're wearing. It's the same exact colors that's in this illustration that's dealing with the lower self. Or the lower regions. Let's just say the lower worlds. Let's call it the lower worlds. So they are enjoying their heaven, which is actually the lower worlds, because they're keeping you. So they're in the areas of passion. Okay, so you're either in the areas of goodness, in the areas of passion, or in the areas of ignorance. So while they're keeping everybody else in the areas of ignorance, they are in the areas of passion, which is the reason why they have various different monetization type systems set up, where they've monetized making sure that they can get the substance, making sure that they can get the substance, because it gives what? It gives the ability to regenerate, because they don't have the appropriate stuff from within them. So they need that earthworm extract. They need that earthworm extract that they're getting from the males. Okay, let me see if I can get that here. They need this earthworm extract, right, that they're actually getting from the males. Okay, remember here in this particular photo, let me see if I can get the arrow pointed here to show you that I've already brought out that a Diong is basically at the younger stage. It's a earthworm. So see here how you have that this little dragon-looking dinosaur Diong that's right there. So that's what's causing the wound, and that's what they're doing. So if you look at the top right-hand corner of this illustration, of course, you'll see what the lady is doing, you know, trying to control the genetic library there, because they need that substance, so they can try to get into places that they don't necessarily supposed to be getting to. So it looks like the answer is to keep your pants up and to continually develop yourself from within, so you can get access to these particular locations wherever you're located. Okay, in the Father's house of many mansions, you can advance, and you'll start to realize that you gain certain abilities as you are advancing and moving from this tail. You move from the tail, you're moving up, you know, through the oxons or whatever case may be, and you're getting to this sail body or whatever, and then you're getting regenerated. The dragon obviously is giving you the power to speak with great authority, and so forth and so on. So when you're up there, these particular parasitical type stuff that has been trying to cast you out and make sure you can't get nowhere, they can't survive anymore. They're only surviving off of the substance that they are stealing from the people. Okay, that's basically how they've been surviving. So this is pretty much. Hopefully this helps you understand what to do. So the land conversation that people are having is a part of it, okay? The identity thing that people are talking about is a part of it, all right? So what you're dealing with, though, is you need to understand the sail, that first sail that emerges out of the water, okay? So that's your source, and that's what you're getting back to, so you can be in the appropriate places on the land bringing forth the victory to the feet of the most holy, or whatever word you want to say there. So that's really what you're dealing with there. Is you need to recognize what's actually happening, and it looks like the main thing is the senses. Looks like the main thing is the senses. So don't forget, down here in this illustration, in the tail area is where the sensory receptors are. Okay, so then when you're down there and you're in the lower areas, this is how you know that you're affected by it, is when you're affected by a bunch of memories, false associations, contaminating associations, addictions, desires, if you're caught up into the flesh where you can't keep your pants up and all this other kind of stuff, personality, all this other kind of stuff. It looks like that is the lower self. Now you might are experiencing a different degree of the lower self based upon what you've done or what you're participating in, and your position might be higher than somebody else's or whatever. But don't forget, it's just there are those who are just trying to obtain the higher regions of the lower regions, if you get what I'm saying. So those are typically passion areas where a lot of people are caught up in a bunch of passions, and you'll realize that, maybe you already realize it now, but that's pretty much what that is this is basically just passion. If you look at this properly, this is all passion stuff here. You get what I'm saying? While they're keeping it, you can say ignorance is down there in these holes. That would be considered ignorance or considered hell. Okay, so you have hell, which is a degree of the same thing, same type of consciousness, and then you have heaven, which is, we can identify that as being up here in the higher area up there of the cell, mastering the senses and so forth, and then being connected up to maybe another existence or so forth and so on. So it just keeps going in the Father's house of many mansions. But that's what this land thing is really dealing with. When you look at this illustration here and you look at this illustration, it's the same exact thing. So there's your land conversation. Do you get what I'm saying? So don't get too caught up into the name associations in terms of name titles when it comes to lands. You need to look at this more so from a neuron perspective, and thinking about, okay, well, what position do I play in this particular structure? There's a reason why there are those who are doing well in a particular land, and there are those that are not doing well. So you can kind of identify who's doing what, and then when you're on this path, you can see what your abilities are, and then you start coming in contact with those who have actually been controlling through the senses. You get what I'm saying? So some people are just jumping from the pot to the frying pan, thinking that they're actually advancing in something, but what I'm trying to show you here is this is pretty much the pathway of being able to do it. First, you need to recognize what is being done, and it's right here on this painting. If you have any questions about this particular video, you can leave them in the comment section underneath the like button, okay, and I'll see you in the next one. So here's another one here for you, physical senses here, where you got touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing, intuition, and thought transference. You know what I'm saying? If you're, that's an interesting one for another video, but I'll end this one with this illustration here. All right, I'll see you in the next one.